My name is Richard Gonzales, born in California, in Hanford, California, which is a little bit south of Fresno. It's kind of central California. My father was born in Eagle Pass, here in Texas, and then my mother down in Hidalgo, down in the Rio Grande Valley. My grandparents, my father's parents, were also from the Eagle Pass area. Not in Eagle Pass, but Quemao. And then my grandparents on my mother's side were from right across the rivers. My grandma was born in Tamaulipas. They're in a place she called Charco Escondido. And my grandfather, which I never met because he passed on. He was older when he married my grandmother, but he was also born from the Rio Grande Valley area, or actually in Victoria, Texas. We were raised as just Americans and Texans, actually. My parents always said they were from Texas, and so Texas was something before Texas, of course, and didn't know a whole lot of my history at that time. And it wasn't until 1962, which I was in the 8th grade then. We had moved into close to my grandmother, my mom's mom, who lived in Fresno, and we just lived outside of town. And at that time, everybody goes to grandma's house and starts talking about the old days. Back here in Texas, all the relatives were from here. So I remember sitting in the living room, and my grandmother had a very small house. It was a one-bedroom house, and everybody was piled into the kitchen and dining area, talking and eating, preparing food. And all of a sudden, they started speaking to my grandmother pretty stern. They started questioning her because she had said that we were Apaches, and I had heard that over the years, but that was as much as the conversation would ever take you. Some of the relatives, uncles and cousins, started saying, "Well, where'd you get that information? We're Apaches. How would you, why would you say that?" And my grandmother said, "Because that's what we are." And no, the Apaches are savages and devil worshippers, and there's a lot of things that are made reference to Apaches over time, even in my days of history classes and just TV, and on and on. And then, and then they made a point, of course, the Apaches are in Oklahoma, and they're over in reservations. We're not in reservations in New Mexico and those places. So my grandmother finally, at one point, after this had gone on for like 15 minutes, my grandmother finally, I had stood up and stood around the corner from the room there where the adults were speaking, and they were pretty upset that my grandmother was sticking to that line. We're Apaches because that's what her mom told her. We were Apaches. We're not anything else. And they said, "Well, we're Spaniards. Our name came from Spain, and because my grandmother's maiden name was Lozano, but her mother's name was Castro, and so those names come from Spain, and somehow they'd married into the Spanish heritage, and so we're mixed." Essentially, what the bottom line was. If we're Indians, we're mixed. And so anyway, she finally had it with them and came up to where I was standing, just around the corner. I thought she was going to say something to me to butt out or something, but she pointed out to the street. She said, "Out there in the street, en la calle, you can be whatever you want to be. Not in this house, you won't. If you have our blood flowing through your veins and you're our family, van a ser Apaches. Make sure you understand that. There's no more discussing. That's who we are. We're Apaches. Some Spaniards came and mixed with us. That's good. We accept it. We didn't mix with them. We never got anywhere."